It's interesting that Islamic finance is often shown in the newspapers as being finance without interest because Islam bans interest. But I actually think this is just a corollary of the fundamental aspect of the Islamic economy, which is that money is merely a medium of exchange. It's not a material commodity to be traded in and of itself. So it's a store of value, and I think that's the fundamental difference between the Islamic finance industry or the Islamic economy and the conventional economy. So I think there's a very heavy emphasis in Islamic finance on the real economy, and in theory at least, all Islamic financial transactions are meant to have this emphasis on the real economy and not just on the trading of intangibles. For example, the modern derivatives industry. In theory, Islamic finance is about having a holistic attitude to the economy and to commercial transactions. So, for example, any transaction that I enter into or my institution enters into with another counterparty has to be governed by certain ethical principles like justice, like transparency, like ensuring that there is equity sharing between the counterparties involved. A type of finance, a type of economy that not only encourages the free market economy, but also ensures that there is adequate regulation against greed, against speculation. I think we can demonstrate this with practical examples. This private equity firm who was buying a piece of, or was buying a company called Egyptian Fertilizers Company needed $800 million in what would have been senior debt in a conventional transaction. And the way that the Islamic Bank approached this, they said, well, how do I ensure that this is a real economy transaction? How do I act as a merchant, not as a bank? I'm not lending money with a view to receiving money plus a bit more in exchange. What if I buy the underlying commodity that this company produces, and in this case it was fertilizer, and we buy $800 million worth of that commodity, and then over the term of this financing, they will pay us back as a forward purchase, if you like. And that's a real economy transaction. Here you have an institution that's acting as a merchant. It's buying a commodity on one hand and selling it at a fair price markup on the other hand. And that's an example of a real economy transaction where the bank's financial transaction has a one-to-one relationship with the underlying real economy transaction. I'm personally convinced that religious morality can be reconciled with finance, and actually I think it's essential that morality in general is reconciled with finance. Today we see protesters who are railing against the conventional banking culture, banking bonuses, the egregious practices of certain institutions who have colluded to fix prices, for example. I think much of this can be avoided. And let's take an example. We've seen one particular occasion when the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, stated that he would ensure that the Church of England competed payday lenders like Wonga out of existence because of their usurious practices. And actually a day later, the Financial Times revealed that the Church of England pension fund had a significant seed investment in Wonga, which of course was hugely embarrassing. The reality is there's a disconnect often between the rhetoric of leaders on the one hand and the practices somewhere else within an organization. And if there was a commitment to a level of morality and integrity and ethics throughout an organization, whether that's government, whether that's a religious organization, whether that's a bank, then you would find that the rhetoric that we hear in the news about wanting to do the right thing would actually be reflected by everybody who worked in that company. My concern is that Islamic finance today is taking one step forward and two steps back. And partly the reason for that is because we have a very acquiescent culture. So we accept the status quo, and the things that were done for Islamic finance to help to progress the industry over the last 40 years or so continue to take place now. But I think it's time to move on. I think we can start applying both spirit of the law, spirit of Sharia law, that is transparency and justice and equity and risk sharing, as well as letter of the law, which is what we have been following for the past 40 years. I think the time has come to move on. So I'm optimistic about the future because I see a new generation of entrants into Islamic finance. I see students who are very, very keen on working in this industry, and they're holding on to some ideals, and I'd like them to hold on to those ideals. Because as long as they do, and as long as they don't accept being acquiescent to the prevailing culture within the banking industry, then I think Islamic finance can be successful.